city is going on lockdown in a couple of days. So it's now or never for this music video. This is really all we got. There was definitely this sense of urgency when we were shooting the music video. We just finished rushing to finish making the EP in time for the release date. And then we learned about quarantine, and suddenly we had to shoot the music video that week, or who knows when it could have gotten done.
1, 2, 3, 4.
One of the biggest challenges was that we just didn't have much time to plan or prepare, really. I thought of some of the basic concepts like on the train to Cole's place that night, and then we just kind of spitballed some ideas for a basic narrative just so we vaguely knew what we were going to be shooting once we went out. There were no predetermined locations or anything like that. We just wandered around Brooklyn and looked for anywhere that wasn't crowded and looked like it would make for a nice shot, really. Actually shooting the music video was exhausting. From the beginning, the Bluetooth speaker that we brought died. Tiny speaker. You already know what it is. So I couldn't play the track loudly and like lip sync to it. I literally had to play the song from my phone and put it in my pocket before the shot started while we were filming, because that was the only way I could run around and do whatever and still kind of vaguely hear what part I was on. The hardest scene to shoot had to be the one with the scooter. We chose the absolute worst place you could possibly choose to ride a scooter. The ground was full of debris and cracks and garbage, and I hadn't ridden a scooter since I was like 7, so not much acting was needed for that one. I genuinely feared for my life. From there, the remaining 90% of the work started, which was post-production. So to start off, we needed a rough cut of the entire video pretty much, so Cole actually sliced that together. He did the initial edit for the video that I would later animate over. And from there, I kind of just had to get to work on it. I was already working on my final film for the spring semester, which was the making of for the album actually, so if you want to check that out, you can go to wherever people would go to check that out. I'll leave a link. But I think after I finished that film and my spring semester was when I really started to dive into this. So I started with this first scene where I'm walking down the street, just kind of winging it, animating straight ahead. I didn't plan really any of it. But as the scene sort of progresses, you can see me getting a little bit more confident with the process, and every little idea gets a little bit more ambitious. And then there's the next scene. All of a sudden, we're talking anime explosions, all the effects animation under the sun. There's 3D animation. The entire kitchen sink is now thrown out the video because I have some time. There were some tricks I used to make this a little bit easier to tackle. For example, most of the animation in this is actually done on 2s. So if you're unfamiliar with animation, that basically just means that each frame was repeated twice. But even for those parts, the repeated frames had to be tracked and positioned to the video if it was at a higher frame rate. So to get around that problem, for certain scenes I actually lowered the frame rate of the video all the way down to 12 frames per second, so that it would match up with the animation. Just because it would have been ridiculous to animate this at 30 frames per second, doing a new frame every single every single frame. It would have never gotten done. That'd be a very Disney thing of me to do, and I am not Disney. I am just Jiraiya. The hardest scene to animate had to be the ending. I knew it was going to be this big moment in the video, so it had to be really eye-catching, and I wanted it to be super busy. On the other hand, it was literally the last thing I animated, so I was exhausted from obsessing over this video for like 14 hours every day. So when I got the idea for the marching band sort of walking behind me and exploding, it's this feeling of like, yes, that's the idea, immediately followed by, oh, I have to do that. Okay. That was a lot of making this, really, just getting cool ideas and being like, oh, that is gonna take a while. That scene had to be tackled piece by piece. I started by animating the characters separately. I originally was going to just animate them all as their own little sequence together, and they'd be sort of, in a group, but since there's a camera turn, they had to each move independently of each other for the perspective to make sense. And then they had to be tracked. For this one, I thought it would be fitting to keep the footage at a full 24 frames per second. So that meant tracking each character of the marching band separately for every frame of that bit. And it took days just doing that. You can even see where I sort of slip up at a few places and the marching band kind of veers off. And the thing with tracking objects by hand is that it's very difficult to go back. If I wanted to go in and fix that part where I slipped up, I'd essentially have to adjust every frame from that point on, because I put them there in the wrong place by hand. And at that point, I figured it's not the end of the world. I'll let them rock. They could wiggle around a little bit, whatever. If I had the time, or maybe like additional animators on board, I think I would have made this scene even crazier. Honestly, there were a lot of wild ideas I had that just weren't practical for one person to do in that amount of time. But it is what it is. We all have limitations. That's kind of what the song is about. So I tried my best not to dig myself into a hole with the video, but I did get very close at some points. But overall, I'm really proud of how the video came out. The response has been amazing, and I'm so grateful to all of you, all the people that have watched it and shared it around. That's been incredible. I don't think I've ever had something I made sort of have a response like that. So that was really satisfying and really just like gratifying after spending so much time on it. But yeah, I mean, that's really, most of what there was to it. If you haven't watched the video, or you haven't watched it in a while, you want to revisit it with all of this brand new knowledge, then, you should do that. Just give it another watch. But yeah, thanks for watching this little behind the scenes. I've never really done this sort of thing for a video, because I've never done a video like this. But I hope to do stuff like this more. I kind of like, breaking down the process and showing a bit of the behind the scenes to make stuff seem a little bit less daunting to take on for other people, hopefully. But yeah, have a great one. Feel free to subscribe if that's something you're into. Like the video. And hopefully I will see you in another video.
How many times did you hit your ankle?